Hi, this is Heather Lyon. I am sharing with you some information about understanding and implementing the assessment cycle, which is a part of the work that you have agreed to do for the summer of 2021. So I'm going to start with some assessment basics, including really that there are three types of assessments, or at least three times that we give assessment. So sometimes we give diagnostic assessments, and those are assessments that we do before the learning to determine what students already know before they come to you. And then there are formative assessments. Those are assessments for learning, formative for learning, to inform instruction. And those are assessments that we do throughout the instructional period just to see how the kids are learning what it is we're teaching. And then finally, we have summative assessments, and those are assessments of learning to determine student knowledge after instruction. So some people like to say the formative assessments are akin to a physical, whereas a summative assessment is akin to a autopsy because there's nothing that can be done at that point. There's also different times that you would give assessments. So you might give assessments annually. Those are the least frequent. So at the highest end of this pyramid, these are the least frequent. And at the lowest end, we have the most frequent. So you can see that the least frequent we would give are summative assessments like final exams or the New York State or Regents exams, whereas down here, these first two layers of the pyramid talk about formative assessments. And so formative assessments are generally given as frequently as daily, but it could be 1 to 4 times per month the formative assessment is given. There are also common summative assessments. We're not going to really talk too much about those today, but those would be quarterly assessments, or any of these honestly could be common assessments as long as they're created by the PLC and administered to all students that would be within the same course. So now that we understand that, here are some shared foundational agreements regarding PLCs and assessments. I am not going to read this all to you. I'm only going to touch on those highlighted areas because I know you can read. But generally, I want to make sure that we're orienting ourselves similarly so that we understand the purpose behind assessments within a PLC. So because we are a district that believes in the professional learning community model, which is really just that collaboratively we're able to achieve more than we're able to independently, which is touched on in this bullet. No one person has the energy and expertise to meet all of the learning needs of each student assigned to the classroom. We also believe that assessment should be used to improve student learning, not just report student learning. And that's where the formative portion of assessments come into play. Without formative assessments, we don't have ways to know what our students know and therefore respond accordingly if they are struggling to learn, or respond accordingly if they are already demonstrating proficiency and are ready for more. As well as the PLC, we agree that collaborative teams must have agreements, not just about what we want our students to know, but also what proficiency looks like. So what does success look like collectively? We're defining that, and therefore we can collectively assess for how students are doing. And then finally on this slide, PLCs believe that systematic interventions need to be timely and targeted. And this term here, systematic, is so important because it means we're not just leaving it to chance that students are going to receive interventions, what they'll receive, or when they'll get it, but we have devised a system that supports that. 3 additional agreements that PLCs have regarding assessment is that it's not just students benefit from systematic interventions, they also benefit from systematic extensions of their learning. So we know that we have lots of students who demonstrate proficiency pretty quickly, if not prior to the point that they came to us. So we need to respond accordingly. We also know that a team's collective analysis of student learning evidence through common assessment serves as a powerful catalyst for instructional improvement because it helps members identify individual strengths to share, individual concerns to address, and areas where no team members have yet to experience success. And this bullet is actually connected to this bullet right here, in that no one person is able to do what the collective team is able to do. And then lastly, the best assessment process is balanced, meaning it's not just formative, it's not just summative, it's not just paper, pencil, or performance, it's not just short-term or long-term assignments, it's the full gambit. So in summary, strategically assessing our students provides insight into what our students know and gives us opportunities to respond to our students' needs. And because we're a PLC, we do this work right here collectively. So that brings me to understanding the assessment cycle. And this is the image regarding the assessment cycle. What's important to know about this image is that it's a cycle. And so it, though you're going to start and plan, go through, do, study, act, you're going to go back to plan. It's a cycle. So that's important to remember. This cycle is also premised on the 4 PLC questions. What do we, meaning we need to ask ourselves what students need to know and be able to do. How do we know how our students are doing? How do we respond when some students need more? And how do we respond when some students are already proficient? Again, that begins with the planning portion of it. So at its most basic, we're talking about assessment mapping, and assessment maps tell us the standards that are assessed and when each standard is assessed. More complex assessment maps also identify how the standards are assessed, and you'll see that in just a moment. So this is a basic assessment map. So you can see we have the standards listed here. For simplicity, they're just listed by number. And then the first CFA, we're going to test standard 1 and 3. The second CFA, we're going to do standards 1 through 4. CFA 3 is standards 3 and 4. CFA 4 is standard 4. And then here's this unit test. So let's call this week 5. And then CFA 6, you're going to see it doesn't just lose the standards from earlier. It's still assessing earlier standards, but now we're adding some new standards to it. This is basic assessment mapping. Now here's a more complex assessment map, and what I'll point out here is that it's the same as the one before it, except here you're going to see it lists how these standards will be assessed. So standards 1 and 3 are going to be assessed using an exit ticket. CFA 2 is going to assess using an entry ticket. The third one using a writing sample. We're back to an exit ticket for CFA 4. We're on to an infographic for CFA 6. So you can see that this is, it says, it should say complex, but you can see this is more complex, but it's really not more, it's not much more of a heavy lift. Marzano's work on assessment shares that there are really 3 types of questions that we ask on any assessment: type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 1 questions are questions that assess below grade level information students should already know before coming to you. Or type 1 questions can also be earlier in the year information that you have already taught students, but now you're making sure that it's reinforced. Type 2 questions are questions that assess on grade level information students learn from you, and basically that means within this unit. So a type 2 question is something that's assessing what students need to know now because they have been taught that information now. And then type 3 questions are questions that assess above grade level or later in the year information that most students would learn after you or after the time at which this assessment is taking place. I'm pointing these things out because each time that you assess, particularly a more cumulative assessment, it would be important to have type 1, type 2, and type 3 questions on there. These type 1 questions are really diagnostic. Type 2 are formative because it's based on what you think, or on getting information about what the students have learned based on what you've just taught. Type 3 questions as well are diagnostic questions. It's how well do you know things that I haven't yet taught you? So every assessment should explicitly target specific standards. In other words, it's very purposeful, but also it should identify what type of question that standard is testing. So those are important factors to keep in mind. When you complete that assessment mapping, you start to enter the implement, instruction, and assessment phase of the assessment cycle. This is only one slide because this is where the magic happens of instruction. So because you've already decided what standards to assess, you've already assessed the students' learning of the standards, or you've already determined when you're going to assess that. So now it's the teaching portion. So after you teach, while you're teaching, you are assessing. So this is the study portion. In a PLC, all teachers of the same content collaborate not just on the creation of the assessments, but on the analysis of the student performance. And so this do portion and this study portion are not things that you can work on this summer because you're only going to get as far as the planning portion. The do is what's going to happen next school year when you start teaching, and then so is the study. And so imagine that you have taught, you've given a CFA, now you work collaboratively with your colleagues. And so maybe you guys are even people who can evaluate student work without regard for the specific teacher who taught that. In other words, all the teachers in a PLC evaluate an equal number of assessments rather than only those who are assigned to them. Similarly to how Regents exams or New York State assessments are graded. You're not paying attention to the name on the page. You're paying attention to the learning that is demonstrated. So there are many different protocols that can be used to review student work. Here is a website with dozens. So I'm going to click on that so I can show you what that looks like. And so this is, this website is schoolreforminitiative.org/protocols/. And so what I love about this is like there's so many protocols to choose from. And even if you're not talking about protocols for collaboratively reviewing student work, there's just so many to choose from for all different things. So I encourage you to take a moment and check out this website when you have a chance. And there are several different ways to look at the protocols, and I'll leave that up to you. I'm sharing this again, not that you would try all of them, but try one, try two, see what you like. After reviewing the assessment, students are sorted by the PLC, that's the full team, into groups. So for example, you could sort the students based on their responses into 3 groups. Got it, almost got it, don't got it. So if you have these 3 groups, then you say, oh, well, we have a few students who are in the got it, meaning they're ready for more. Most of the students might be in the students who need a little more practice, they almost got it. And then you have a handful of students who need instruction in a different manner and they don't got it. Well, if there's 4 of you, You could have one teacher with the got it, one teacher who's with the don't got it kids, and then two teachers with the almost got it students. And it really does not matter who the teacher of record is, who the homeroom teacher is, because as a PLC, you're working together to support these students. So all teachers are available to work with students based on their needs rather than who their teacher is on paper. And this would happen after every CFA. This is also the stage in the cycle where, based on how all students perform, teachers discuss different approaches to instruction to learn from each other. Meaning my students, many of my students were in the don't got it pile. So I need to think about learning how to teach whatever it was that was taught differently. And so I'm going to lean into my PLC. This isn't gotcha. This is to ensure that our students have the opportunity to learn. And then the last part of the cycle in terms of getting through all four of these stages the first time around is the take action on results. And again, this won't happen until next school year after you've done your due, your study. You're now on ACT. So taking action on results means that students are provided with as needed instruction based on the CFA evidence of student learning. So that's, we have structures in place that allow us to share kids. And so K to 8, we have win time for that opportunity. And 9 through 12, we have our Lancer Learning Center. So the people in the Lancer Learning Center are probably members of PLCs. And so taking that information from the PLC, they can work with those students in the Lancer Learning Center. So one more time, these are the 4 stages. Again, it's a cycle. Start with plan. That's the work that's taking place this summer. And then starting in the school year, we'll do, study, act, and then we'll be able to go back to plan and do it all over again. So in summary, PLCs that follow the assessment cycle collaboratively discuss what the students need to learn, assess student learning, review student learning as demonstrated through the CFA, and work on providing as needed instruction based on the CFA evidence of student learning. So now we're going to talk about implementing the assessment cycle. And like I said, I'm just talking about plan. So with that, this is all laid out in the memo that I'm sharing for the summer 2021 curriculum and instruction planning memo. So when you go to that memo, you're going to see several stages of work to do. And so specifically, you need to remember that you're gonna need to complete a timesheet and for up to 10 hours of work. So here's access to the timesheet. You'll click this and it will actually should prompt you to make a copy. And so you'll make a copy and submit that. And then to receive payment, you need to participate in all aspects described below. So step 1, you are doing, because we are now on the watch the video portion. The first part of step 1 is to complete the common expectations and payment assurance form. So this form will come up and you will be able to complete this, which basically identifies who you are, where you work, the names of the people on your team, and that you understand that you need to complete the work in order to get paid. You're going to watch the video, and then you're going to go to the Lewiston-Porter Assessment Resource website, which will be available today, beginning June 25th, and select any combination of at least 3 videos to watch or articles to read that will help foster your growth. This is very similar to what you had to do last year. Then you're going to click here. This should take you, you'll see it says, it's going to take you about 15 to 30 minutes of your time. So you're going to complete this form where you introduce yourself and you click where you are. And then you're going to reflect. So in your own words, based on what you watch, why OCFA is important. After watching the video, what's one thing that you learned? After watching the video, what's one thing you will do when planning for the coming year? And so you'll be filling this out for each of the resources. Remember the 3 videos or articles or combination that will help you regarding, regarding assessment creation. Then you are going to work as a team. So you're going to sign up as a team for times to meet. And you'll be able to, that'll pop up, but you'll be able to see down here that you're going to have a team check-in of 20 minutes to talk about what you've been up to. Here are the dates that you can choose from and what that needs to look like. And so you're going to do that. And you are going to then complete parts A and B in the assessment design expectations. And so let me talk a little bit about that. So these look very similar, regardless of if you're a K through 5 teacher or, a 6 through 12 and special area teacher. So the difference is that K to 5 teachers tend to teach multiple courses, multiple content areas, whereas 6 through 12 teachers tend to teach multiple courses. So either way, you're going to create common assessment maps. That's part A, and part B is create common formative assessments. So you're going to, K to 5 teachers are going to select a content area. And so the members of the team will be responsible for different content area each. So I may do ELA, somebody else can do math, somebody else can do science, somebody else can do social studies. And then we're going to create an assessment map. So when you click on this, again, you'll be told you have to make a copy. I have a copy here. This is, these are the directions. And on the directions, you're going to see, you're going to enter in the standards for the course you teach. A new sheet will be made for each different course. You're going to write out the standards so you can use this document as a reference, or a resource rather. You're going to determine which standards to assess for each CFA. There is one CFA for each week of the year listed here. You're going to put an X in the column for the CFA, that it is clear which standard will be assessed. And you're going to see that when you scroll over, you're going to be able to see how many times you've assessed that standard. During a week when you administer a summative assessment, a unit test, midterm, etc., you should change the title of the column to say the type of assessment you're getting rather than to say CFA, which is what we saw with the examples from the PowerPoint. So to show you what that would look like, so here I've gone through and I've added, I did 5th grade ELA, I started. This really was just a copy and paste. And then let's say I'm going to, for CFA 1, I'm going to do standard 1 and standard 2. For CFA 2, I'm going to do standard 2 only. CFA 3, I'm going to do standard 3 and standard 4. You can see how easy that process is of just adding an X. Again, please add X's because as you scroll over, you're going to see that this column, column AP, keeps track of how many X's are in each row. So you'll be able to see, oh, I will have tested standard 5R1 once, 5R2 3 times, 5R3 once. And so that will be helpful for you to know how often you tested each of the standards. So for our K to 5 teachers, you are going to, again, do that for one person per content area per team. And then as a team, you're going to share out the work that was completed and give feedback. So this is a great opportunity, again, to tap into that PLC collective knowledge. You're going to make any changes, and then you're going to share the map in the shared Google folder, which when you click this, you're going to see that there are folders for every building, and then the special areas. So when you click on them, you'll be able to see that there are folders and folders. So if you're a 6 through 12 teacher, you need to, each member will select a course. So each of you is responsible for a different course. If there are multiple team members who teach only one course, then it's the same course. For example, two sixth grade teachers who teach ELA, they may work together. They're going to create an assessment map. They're going to provide feedback and review. They're going to revise based on the feedback and then upload. So you can see how that's very similar from K through 12 and special areas. Now for part B, I'm back to K to 5. So there are two options here. There's a breadth option and a depth option. So with the breadth option, this allows for the creation of a minimum of 13 CFAs for at least 3 content areas over the course of one trimester. So using the assessment maps created in part A, you're going to create CFAs that will be administered weekly during the first semester by all teachers to all students. And then you're going to upload those CFAs into a Google folder that is shared with the team, the principal, and me. So that is the breadth option, multiple content areas, fewer exams. The other option is the depth option, which allows for the creation of 39 CFAs for at least one content area over the course of the year. So using one of the assessment maps that was created, let's say it's for math, you're going to create CFAs that will be administered weekly throughout the year, and then upload those CFAs to the folder. So that's for K to 5. For 6 through 12, also breadth and depth. So breadth is the option allows for the creation of a minimum of 20 CFAs for at least 2 courses over the first semester. So that's using 2 of the assessment maps created. You're going to create enough CFAs for the first half of the year for 2 courses. The other option is to create 40 CFAs for at least 1 course over the 2 semesters. So that is pretty much the explanation for the work that you're doing this year. I do want to point out that if you click here, you're going to find the standards from New York State for whatever course you teach. So all you have to do is click on the link, and that will pull up the content area. And then in the content area, you're going to see the standards. So I started monkeying around with this. And so for math, I can click on the Word version. It's going to pop open for me, and I will be able to copy and paste the standard. So I don't actually have to type the standard into the spreadsheet, which is really nice. ELA, hold on one second. ELA, when I click on that, these are the standards at a glance. Even though this is a PDF, I can still highlight within a PDF, and I can copy that, and then I can go over to the spreadsheet, and I click paste, and there it is. So I wanted to share this information with you so that way you understand the expectations. And as always, if you have any questions, I am here and happy to help you navigate this. And the whole purpose of this work is to ensure that our students have great opportunities for learning and getting the support that they need from the teachers who work collaboratively together. Thanks so much.